What is up and what's happening, Auburn fans? Welcome into the 88th edition of Auburn Primetime Live. I'm your guy, Blake Lane. It feels like a lifetime, right? I know I haven't been on here much the past week. High school baseball has started, and it's got me wrapped up this past week. The weekend, I was loaded with games. Last night didn't leave the field till 10:15, so I apologize for not going live last night, but I mean, like I said, I coached the JV game and then I stayed to watch the varsity game, and we got 2 dubs. So shout out to JV and shout out to the varsity team for going 2-0 last night against the Theodore Bobcats. So we're here tonight to talk some Auburn football. Why is the Florida game the most massive game for Auburn in the 2026 season? I believe so because there's some things that weigh on it and some things that happened uh, before Alex Golish was hired. And so we're going to talk about that. And Auburn baseball, man, shout out to them. We're going to talk about them a little bit. And Auburn basketball, unfortunately, what the hell is going on? Not looking good on the hardwood for the Auburn Tigers. So, yeah, just a disaster. I went on 105.5 WNSP today on the radio, and they were asking me, "Hey, how does Auburn make the tournament?" And I was like, "They better strap in, right? They better get going. They better find a way, and they better do it quickly." So, a lot to talk about, man. Let's jump right into it. Week three, and why I have this is the absolute uh, just monstrous, massive game for the Auburn Tigers, and I'll stand on it here with I think Florida is the kickstart to Auburn in the 2026 season. One, because it's it's the first SEC game on your schedule, right? And it's a rivalry. I know we don't get to visit that rivalry like we once did, and like we really all want to. I think that is one of the better rivalries in the country. We just don't get to play it a whole lot, right? I know we have Baylor week 1. That was supposed to be at home. It got moved to Atlanta for NIL, and I know a lot of Auburn fans weren't happy with that, but that's the way today today's college football is, right? It's all about the money. And then you got Southern Miss at home. That should be a gimme, right? I believe that Auburn should beat Baylor once again, and I believe that you should beat Southern Miss. And then it steps to the Florida Gators, right? Like I said, your first SEC test, and it also comes against a guy that was pretty much announced to be your next head coach in John Summerall, and the former head coach of Tulane, took him to the college football playoffs. Everybody thought, "Oh my God, it's John Summerall." Okay, well that's strike one. Okay, so this is a guy that said, "Hey, all the pieces aren't there at Auburn for me to take that job. Like I, they're not all they're not all in. They're not together. There's too many behind the scenes things going on, and I just don't know if I can hop on board with that." Okay, so he pivots and ends up taking the Florida job, right? So a lot of Auburn fans are like, "Wow, man, like what's going on? Who are we gonna get?" Alex Golish had been linked to Arkansas. It left a lot of Auburn fans in limbo, like they didn't know. And so um, I think that weighs heavy on you hire Alex Golish. Now, you can't let John Summerall walk into Jordan Hare Stadium and beat you straight up in your first SEC game. Okay. If you do, then everybody is going to start what? The national media is going to be like, okay, well, Auburn made the bad hire. Florida made the solid hire. Auburn should have went and got John Summerall, and they didn't. Okay? They didn't. And that once again, the narrative's going to be Auburn blew it. Auburn can't get it done. They're never together. Auburn's always going to find a way to screw things up. But if you beat John Summerall, what's the narrative going to be then? It's going to be like, hey, Auburn got their guy. Auburn, they passed on John Summerall. And they went and got Alex Golesh. Maybe it wasn't John Summerall who didn't want Auburn. Maybe it was Auburn didn't want him. Maybe that could be the narrative, right? So I think that has a lot to play with. And then also, like I said, it's your first SEC test. And when I look at this schedule, man, if you get that Florida win, then you roll with Vanderbilt at home. And remember, Diego Pavia is no longer at Vanderbilt. Now, I know they got a guy coming in 5-star and, you decommitted from Georgia, flipped to Vandy, whatever. It's crazy that Vandy's ripping 5-star QBs. Wild. But he's, there's a lot. We don't know who's going to be at quarterback for him, but it's not Diego Pavia. All right. That's what we know for sure. Okay. So that's a winnable game. Man, if you start 2-0 in the SEC, how different are things looking? That is why I think Florida is the biggest game for you, the Kickstarter, because if you win that one, then you can roll into some momentum. How fired up would Jordan-Hare be? 1-0 in the SEC, got Vanderbilt, who has kicked your teeth in the past 2 seasons. You got them coming to town. It's time for some payback. It's time to get back on track. And now we're 2-0 in the SEC, right? Then you have the trip to Knoxville, okay? We know that's going to be a tricky one. We know their quarterback's going through issues with trying to get a 6th year and all that stuff, whatever. The NCAA is absolutely insane. We don't really know what's going to happen there. But once you roll that trip to Knoxville, you get the bye before you go to Georgia. This is absolutely massive. I'm not here to say that Auburn's going to start 5-0. I'm not here to say they're going to start 4-1. But, man, if you get that Florida win and you can stomp that narrative into the ground about John Summerall not coming to Auburn, and Alex Golesh goes and gets a win against him in their first SEC matchup, man, I think that could be big time for the Auburn Tigers. That could be big time for the program. And then if you got that Vanderbilt win, man, you're 2-0 in the SEC. And if you do go drop a game in Knoxville, you're 2-1 in the SEC, and you would be 4-1 overall. And then you would get a bye week and go to Georgia, right? Like, I think that would be the best possible outcome for the Auburn Tigers. So that Florida game is an absolute must win. Yes, the Baylor game is huge. Okay, Daniel, the Baylor game is very important. But I think Auburn has the athletes and they can cruise by Baylor. And, we saw what Auburn did to them last year at their place. And, Sawyer Robertson, I mean, I thought he was one of the best quarterbacks in college football. And unfortunately, they didn't have the season that they thought they were going to have. But I still think Auburn has the better roster. And Auburn has the better defense, and we'll see about the offense. But you should beat Baylor in a predominantly heavy Auburn crowd in Atlanta, right, in Mercedes-Benz. So I'm going to shy away from that week 1. Last year I said that Baylor was massive, right? I said that that was the one that was going to kickstart it, and it looked like it, right? But that's not the case, and that didn't end up playing out well, I guess. I guess that you could say it aged like milk. All right. But I just look up and down the schedule, man. Obviously, we know the Iron Bowl, that's going to be massive. At Mississippi State, I think that's going to be massive. That's one you got to go get, right? That's a struggling program. Alex Golesh could go get a dub there. Arkansas, I think you got to win that one at home, right? But that Florida one, that's going to kickstart it, folks. That's going to kickstart it, and you could stomp a lot of narratives into the ground with that win right there, okay? You could stomp a lot of narratives into the ground with that win right there, and I think Alex Golesh would get off to one hell of a start if he gets that dub, and Byram goes off and has a day, and your defense plays lights out, man. The national media is going to be kicking over the Auburn Tigers, so really excited, man. I love the content that Auburn's bringing out. Can't wait for A-Day. It's right around the corner, man. We're almost there. We're almost there. Once we get into March and they kick things off, and we get to that 8A game, man. It's coming up on us quick. So it's moving. Time's moving. So uh, I like the Florida game. So I'll stick with that. And I'll get over here in these comments real quick, see what we got right here. And then we'll pivot to a little baseball. I know we're down 2-0 in the bottom of the third against West Georgia right now. We got a hit, man. I just feel like in the midweeks, last week against Cincinnati and now tonight, we got a hit, man. Bristol Carter hit by a pitch there. What a weekend he had. But let's get to these comments, and then we'll talk a little bit about baseball, and we'll pivot to basketball, unfortunately. Miss Karen says, War Damn fam, how we doing tonight, Miss Karen? Doing good, Blake. Happy for you. Thank you, Miss Karen. I'll tell you what, coaching these kids, man, has been really, really fun for me. Just going out there each and every day, trying to impact some kids and trying to get them to love the game of baseball the way I love it. And, coaching these kids up, I coach, I'm an assistant on the middle school team, and I predominantly coach with the middle school kids. But last night they wanted me to work with the JV guys, and I coached first base and helped the head coach out and everything because he didn't have a guy there with him. So, getting to know these kids and these young guys, these 9th and 10th graders, and telling them, hey, you got to prepare yourself for varsity and the next level. And this is how you got to do things and prepare each day. And, you take these reps serious. I absolutely love it. So, it's big time for me. I love high school baseball, man. Like I said, the game last night, the varsity game didn't end until like 10:15, and I was locked in on every pitch. So I love it. I love it. The Florida game, that's the game we're going to this year. Oh, Miss Karen, that's going to be one for the ages, man. That is going to be an hostile atmosphere. Miss Devin says, we had a great time watching the baseball team in Arlington this weekend. I wish we could play every game in Arlington. I wish we could play every game in Arlington because we win there a lot. So, Miss Devin, glad you and the family had a great time. That is awesome. That is awesome. Bristol, that's a run, baby. Yeah, love that. Love that. In my opinion, I think Baylor is more important. We touched on that, Daniel. We touched on that. Let's see here. That's what he was told by Urban Meyer and Lane Kiffin, allegedly, of course. Yeah, I don't know. If he was, then his loss. If Alex Golish beats him, I think we got our guy. So I think that could hopefully it works out that way. And if it does, I think Auburn's cooking. I think we got the better deal in Golish. I certainly like what is being put out there right now. I certainly like him traveling around the state. I certainly like the way he carries himself. And I like, oh, wow, tough play there for the left fielder. I certainly like I said, the workout videos that are being, put out, and Byron Brown and everything that he's doing. It looks like he's a real deal leader. And I think Auburn has lacked that in the quarterback room for quite some time. I just don't want to say the last couple of years, for quite some time. Auburn Dad, let's go, baby. Let's go. We're here. We are here. We can set the tone against Baylor. If we lose, it will feel devastating. Most important, other than that, then Florida and LSU for the rest of the year. Yeah, the reason I don't have Baylor is like the biggest is because, like I said earlier, I just feel like we should beat Baylor. Okay, and that's not a knock to their program or anything, right? But we got the better roster. You have a quarterback that has played in these types of games, right? He's played big time programs. He's not going to be scared of the moment. He's not going to be nervous. He knows the offense. Like, your defense knows what they want to do on offense. Like, you played them last year, so you're familiar with what Spavital, their offensive coordinator, wants to do. And you're going to have a Auburn crowd behind you in Atlanta, right down the street. So I just think we should get past Baylor. I don't want to say fairly easy, but I feel like we should mosey on by, kind of like we did this past season, like a score or two. I think it might get a little lopsided like this past season did later in the game. I believe we do beat Baylor. Yeah, we should. If we don't, it's going to get interesting. If we don't beat Baylor, it's going to get interesting. So let's pivot over here to baseball, man. Huge bounce back performance from the baseball team, right? Um, you went out to Arlington, Texas after suffering, in my opinion, what was an embarrassing loss at home to Cincinnati. I'm not saying Cincinnati's a bad ball club, but you didn't even score. Like, it wasn't competitive. You looked sloppy. You took terrible ABs. Pitching held you in it as much as they could, but after that, man, there was just no life. There was no tone in that game. And so you go out to Arlington, and Auburn fans, they didn't really know how to feel because you just got spanked, and then you got to go out here and play two top 25 teams in Florida State and Louisville, and you got a tough one against Kansas State as well. And you go out there and dominate, man. Pitching was great. Marciano is a guy. Like, there's a lot of things to look up to. Bristol Carter is coming on. Like, if he takes that step like he did in Arlington, he's going to be inserted into the full-time lineup, like the everyday lineup. And Bingaman at first base, like, I think you found your guy there. And the lineup is really, really starting to be put together, and you're seeing guys like McCrane and step in at 2B for in my opinion, what might be something in a full-time role where you have to have his bat in the lineup until Rembert gets back. Uh, and then even after Rembert comes back, like, you got to find a place for him to get in there and get ABs, because I really like what he's doing at the plate right now. But you're slowly starting to see that lineup come together, and big time momentum. Like, Auburn is the number 7 team in the country. I know they're down right now. The bat should wake up. Alvarez on the bump. Everything should be okay tonight for Auburn, hopefully. I know they didn't wake up. I know they didn't wake up last week, but they should wake up tonight against West Georgia, and we should get a fairly easy dub here in these late couple of innings here. So, oh man, yeah, massive stuff, man. Beating Florida State, the bats come out. Beating Louisville, the bats come out. Like, it was a great weekend in Arlington, Texas. So get on board with this baseball team. I think they're going to be really good. We'll find out in a couple weeks when SEC play starts up. But I do think there's a lot of momentum with this baseball team. And shout out Coach Tieford, man, with the job that you have done with the pitching staff and the talent in that room. And some guys that we really expected to see haven't even thrown. And so we still got those on lock that should get some time here soon. And a lot of excitement, and especially a lot of people. I feel a little relief for him because people wanted him gone so quickly. And now you're starting to see everything blossom for him and come to fruition. So love that for him. Butch Thompson obviously gets all the credit, man. He's the skipper, and he deserves it. I think he's the best coach on campus right now until others got to prove it, right? Steven, we can pivot to that. This basketball team, man, like I said, I went on the radio station today at 5 o'clock down here in Mobile, Alabama, to talk Auburn basketball. And I'll be honest with you, folks, I didn't have a lot of great things to say because I think this is a selfish basketball team. I think it's a basketball team that does not want to play defense. And I think it's a basketball team, if you lose one of these next 2 games, you're not making the NCAA tournament. And in my opinion, I don't care what the roster looks like. I know I'm not going to blame all this on Steven. I know you got put into a terrible situation, and your roster does look vastly different than it did last year. But it's embarrassing if Auburn doesn't make the NCAA tournament. And when you are 1-6 in your last 7 basketball games, and you're really lucky to be 1-6. You're really lucky to be 1-6. You should be 0-7, okay, in your last 7. And Auburn's got some work to do. They have to be better on the defensive end. If you can't defend, you're not going to win a lot of games. And Auburn is choosing right now not to defend. I saw a tweet last night, and the guy was like, man, Oklahoma, they haven't shot this well from 3 in like a month. And I'm like, well, I wonder why. because Auburn leaves wide open guys. They leave these shooters wide open, and they're knocking threes down. It's pretty easy when you don't have a hand in your face, and these cats are choosing not to defend. I do want to give a shout out to Sway and Elijah Freeman. And I'm a big fan of Philip Jovich, right? Like I those three guys, I think Auburn needs to continue with and try to build something around for the future. Hopefully they all stay. The transfer portal is a crazy place, and I really, really hope that they can get on a roll these next two games and go into Coleman. If you steal a dub in Coleman, I feel like it's for sure locked up that you're in. If you don't and you get embarrassed, man, you might have to win a game in the SEC tournament. And I know somebody said, well, Blake, they showed us that the SEC tournament doesn't mean anything. Yeah, but if Auburn's on the bubble and they go into the SEC tournament and they win a game, then you got to put them in, right? They got the number one strength of schedule in the country. The net is there to be in the NCAA tournament. So you would have to put them in if they won a game in the tournament. So they would have to pay attention to that. We do play ISO ball too much and no defense. Yeah, that's a fact. Keyshawn Hall is an ISO player, and he's not, when he gets it, he's not going to get rid of it. And he's going to drive and try to draw contact. And if he doesn't, he's going to throw up a wild shot. And that's Auburn basketball for you right now. You don't play defense, you're not going to win. All right. If you don't play defense, you're not going to win. And Auburn is choosing right now not to play defense. And I also think that, you've had hiccups in your season with the Magwood situation and the Keyshawn Hall situation. Those things can really be detrimental to a team. And you're having to worry about off the court issues. And then you go play these games and you can't get rolling because you don't know who's in the starting lineup tonight. You don't know who's available because you got kids missing practice and not wanting to be team guys, and you want to be a lone wolf. And here you go. Here you are. You're fighting for your life to try to get into the NCAA tournament. So Auburn's got to strap in, man. They gotta lock in, and they got to get focused these next two. They're going to be hard, man. Like LSU and Ole Miss are not going to lay down. They have nothing else to play for. Like they're going to try to keep you also out of the NCAA tournament. So hopefully they can get 2 dubs there and kind of solidify that spot in the NCAA tournament. Whew, man. Auburn baseball down 2-1 in the top of the 4th. West Georgia got a runner on first with 1 out. So we'll leave it there, y'all. We will leave it there. Chase Fralick just throws a guy out trying to steal 2B. And we will leave it there for tonight. I thank y'all for joining me. Pretty short one, but I hope to be back on here sometime this week. I can't really promise what day, but like I said, I hope if I got to go late night, I will. If I got to go tomorrow night after the baseball games, I don't know what time I'll get home, but we play Saraland Middle School tomorrow. So wish us luck there. Hopefully we can get a dub, and we can start, getting ready to take on the thicker part of our schedule in this middle school schedule, and we can get ready for this middle school playoff. So I appreciate y'all for joining me, man. Love each and every one of y'all. Sub to the channel if you haven't. Share it out on social media. Do all that good stuff, man. I appreciate each and every one of you. War damn Eagle. I'll catch you later this week. I'm out.